There is a page about money in every textbook ever written, and it goes like this. Before money, people traded things. You had a chicken, I had a pair of shoes. If I wanted your chicken and you wanted my shoes, we had a deal. And if you didn't want my shoes, we were stuck. So somebody invented money to fix it. It's a clean story. You were taught it, and so were your parents. Historians and anthropologists have been looking for that world ever since, and they have never found it. Not once. Not one village, not one island, not one century. There is no record anywhere of a community that ran on trading alone, and only later invented money to make it easier. What they find instead, underneath, is not trade at all. It's people owing each other. I fix your roof this year, you feed my animals next winter. Nobody writes it down, and nobody forgets it either, because the whole village is keeping score in its head. So if money didn't arrive to rescue two people arguing over a chicken, then where did it come from? And what makes a thing money? I'm Blocko, and today we're going to find out. I'll give you the answer now, in one line, because the interesting part isn't the answer, it's watching it happen. Money is not the object, it's the agreement. And the object is only the place where we write it down. Said like that, it's a nice phrase, and nothing more. So by the end of this, you'll have watched it happen 3 times. In a prison camp, on an island where nobody could lift the money, and in your own pocket, on an ordinary morning when nothing changed and everything did. One warning first, the agreement has never been written down anywhere. Nobody signs it, nobody can show it to you, nobody is in charge of it. Which is exactly why it's so easy to believe it's the paper. Let's do that trading story properly though, because it deserves better than being knocked over. The claim historians actually make is a narrow one. No documented community has ever been found running on pure trading before money existed. That has been the settled position in anthropology for 40 years. What people argue about is the bigger conclusion, and some economists push back hard on it. Fine, let them. The narrow part isn't in dispute, and the narrow part is all this needs. So look at what sits in the hole where trading was supposed to be. Credit. Not the kind with a card and a rate on it, the kind where I help you with your roof and everybody quietly remembers that I did. That is a debt. It just isn't written on anything, and it changes what money is for. Money doesn't show up to rescue a swap that went wrong. It shows up to keep score of something that was already there, and to let it travel. To somebody who wasn't in that village, who never saw your roof, and who has no reason on earth to trust you. Take a place with no bank, no government, no shops, and nothing to buy. A prisoner of war camp in the middle of a war. Relief parcels come in, and inside them there are cigarettes. And before long, that camp has prices. A tin of jam costs a number of cigarettes, not roughly, not depending on who you ask, the same number across a camp full of strangers who never agreed on anything in their lives. Then it goes further than you'd expect it to go. Men start lending cigarettes to each other, and charging interest to do it. Prices move with the deliveries. Parcels arrive, and everything costs more of them. The supply runs short, and prices fall through the floor. That is an economy, a whole working economy, built out of the one thing in the parcel that nobody actually needed. And nobody decided any of it. There was no meeting, no vote, nobody printed anything, and nobody declared anything. Every man in that camp simply expected the next man to take a cigarette. And because they all expected it, they were all right. That's the entire mechanism, and it's worth having the word for it. What a cigarette was doing in there is called being a medium of exchange. Something you accept even when you don't want it because you know the next person will take it from you. It was doing 2 other jobs at the same time, and both have names worth carrying out of here. A unit of account, the thing prices get measured in. Nobody in that camp said a tin of jam was worth half a bar of soap. They said what it was worth in cigarettes, and every price in the place could be compared with every other. And a store of value, something you can hold on to now and still spend later. Those 3 jobs are the whole definition. Anything that does them is money, and what it happens to be made of is not on the list. There is a stone at the bottom of the sea, and it still belongs to somebody. It was money. On one island, people used stone discs, quarried on another island, some of them as tall as a person, carried home across open water. and the discs almost never moved. A stone sat where it was, outside a house or at the side of a path, and what changed was who owned it. Everybody on the island knew. Nobody had to move the rock to settle it. Then, one of them never made it home. A storm took it off the raft and it went down in deep water. The crew got back and told everyone what had happened. The stone was real, it was good work, and it was lost through nobody's fault. And the island agreed. That family stayed exactly as wealthy as it had been the day before, over a stone that no living person has ever seen. That is not a quaint story about people who didn't know better. It's the same island telling you out loud that the money was never the rock. Before you file that under charming, though, an economist wrote a paper about that sunken stone, and the reason he wrote it wasn't the island. It was central banks. Because when gold moves between countries, most of the time it doesn't move. It gets relabeled where it stands. Same vault, same metal, a different name on the shelf, and everybody treats that as the gold having crossed an ocean. That is the sunken stone, in a basement, with better paperwork. Nobody calls that quaint. And every version we've built since is the same trick carrying less weight. The first coins we know of were lumps of metal with a stamp pressed into them. And the stamp is the part that matters, because a stamp is somebody standing behind the lump. Then, paper. Merchants wrote out notes that a third person would accept, someone who had never met the man whose name was on it. Look at what that asks of you. To use a coin, you have to trust one authority. To use a note, you have to trust a stranger, about a stranger. The object gets lighter every time, and the agreement has to get bigger to carry it. Which leaves one last piece of string, and the day somebody cut it. The biggest currency on Earth used to come with a promise attached. Not to you, but to other countries. Hand those notes back, and you can have gold for them. That promise was the reason the whole arrangement was supposed to be safe. Then, a president announced that it was suspended. The word used at the time was temporary. It was never restored, and no major currency has been tied to a thing you can hold ever since. Here's the part worth stopping on. The next morning, nothing in anybody's pocket had changed. Same notes, same weight, same ink, same picture on the front. Not one of them bought less bread than it had the day before. Because the thing holding them up had never been the metal in a vault on the other side of an ocean. It was everybody carrying on taking them, which is what everybody did. And it has gone one step further since, which is the number to sit with. Almost none of the money you have is paper. In Britain, the central bank says it plainly. The overwhelming majority of what people hold isn't banknotes at all. It's deposits, records held at a bank. The American figure is close behind it. So the money you earn and spend and worry about at 4 in the morning is mostly a set of numbers that agree with each other. And it works every day for everyone. So the obvious question is, what happens when people stop taking them? And you don't have to imagine that, because there's a note you can hold. A central bank once printed a banknote with 100 trillion on the front. 100 trillion. On the day it appeared, it was worth about one trip to a supermarket, and within weeks, it was worth nothing at all. Same paper, same ink, same government, same signature. Nothing about the object changed. What ended was that people would take it. This is where people take the wrong turn. They see that and they decide the whole thing is fake, that money is a trick and none of it is real. It isn't fake. An agreement that millions of people keep every single day without ever once discussing it is one of the most solid things our species has ever built. It just isn't solid the way a brick is solid. It's solid the way a language is solid. Nobody has ever held a language in their hand. And try getting through tomorrow without one. So, the chicken and the shoes, one more time. That page wasn't wrong because people never traded. People obviously traded. It was wrong about what money is. Money didn't arrive as a clever object invented to fix an awkward swap. It arrived as a way to keep score of what people already owed each other, and every object we've used since has just been a better place to keep the score. A cigarette in a camp. A stone nobody could lift. A coin, a note, a number on a screen. Not one of them was ever worth anything on its own, and every one of them worked for exactly as long as everybody carried on taking it. So the page never asked the only question that matters. What makes a thing money? Everybody else. That, by the way, was block 1. Everything on this channel is built in order, one block at a time. Each one stands on its own. In order, they build one picture. The whole chain is linked below. Next time, we'll build the next block, the place that holds your number for you, and what it is actually doing with your money while you're not looking. Subscribe so you don't miss the next block. See you there.